Welcome to our course, Facilitating the Work of the Kingdom. In the next few sessions, we're going to be looking at some principles that will assist you in being able to administrate and organize the work that God has called you to do. Now, the field of management is vast and it's complex. There are books written about leadership almost every day. There are books written about administration and organization. So it's my hope that you'll profit from the fact that I've looked at many of those works and I've consolidated it into a workable, manageable system or a workable, manageable plan that should be able to work for you in just about any situation, whether it's ministry-oriented or even business or personal. The art of administration and organization needs to be brought down to a manageable level because there are so many details that people think that are absolutely necessary to follow up on and to do, that it leaves them overwhelmed with making it feel like the work never ends and it's never good enough. So what I want to do is I want to give administrators and organizers and individuals in general the basic tools from which to build. Now we're going to assume that everything that is taught in these next few sessions is built on a foundation of prayer, which means that if God has called you to work in his vineyard and in his sheepfold, then prayer is the foundation that makes everything happen. It's important to connect with God, to hear from God, to ensure that you are being directed by God if you're going to organize and administrate his work efficiently and effectively. So by mastering the following principles along or on top of that foundation of prayer, an individual can undertake the organization and administration of a local church or churches or a nonprofit organization or a business or even your personal life, and you should be able to do well in keeping things in order. Now, further study and the development of each chapter's contents or each session's content as we go through this study will allow the student, will allow you to grow in your expertise and your efficiency. Now, some may object to this idea of organizing and administrating on the grounds that it does away with the move and the person and the direction of the Holy Spirit. But on the contrary, the gift of administration is listed as one of the gifts of the Spirit. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 28, we are told that the gift of administration is listed along what is called the more popular gifts. The more popular gifts, obviously, are those that seem to get a lot of attention in our work and in our lives. And the least popular gifts are those that often seem unnecessary or they seem unimportant. But all of these pieces, if you look at 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and chapter 14, all of these pieces work together to ensure that the work of God is being done decently and in order. Now, the Holy Spirit's role in administration and organization is critical. And we must make sure that with that foundation of prayer, we are sensitive to the person and work of the Holy Spirit so that he is walking alongside of us, giving us the guidance and the counsel that we need to ensure that the steps that we take, the needs that we recognize, the plans that we make are what's literally coming out of God's heart and God's mind. So administration and organization shouldn't be looked upon as a necessary evil. It should be looked upon as what it really is. It's another outflowing of the gifting of the Holy Spirit that needs to be received as a gift to the church so that the work of God can be done well. Now, God is organized. We don't have to look very far to see that God is organized. He has left nothing to chance. Natural and supernatural laws have been instituted to ensure that all the planets that he created stay in their orbits, and every step of the plan of salvation is carried out, so that to cast aside the responsibility of organizing and administrating is to accept chaos as normal. But God is not the author of confusion. God is the author of order. Everything that he creates has a marvelous order to it. So the mandate is to organize and to administrate under the leadership of the Holy Spirit on a foundation of prayer so that the Great Commission in Matthew chapter 28, verses 19 and 20 can be carried out effectively and efficiently. As I mentioned earlier, The field of management is vast and complex, and the terminology that is used is varied. Some of the steps that you will hear me talk about will be described using different words by different writers and different speakers. So for simplicity's sake, we're going to use the following definitions throughout this study. And the first one is this: organization is those activities that help us put things together. In other words, when you go out, let's say, to your garage and it's in disorder, you go to organize it, and what you do is you ensure that you identify everything that's in your garage, and then you begin to look for a place that it can be put depending on its priority of use or its ease to get at. And when you are done, you have put things in their proper place. And so when you are organizing in ministry, what you are looking is you are stepping back with a discerning eye under the guidance of the Holy Spirit on that foundation of prayer that we spoke about just a moment ago. And you're looking at the work of God that He's called you to do and identifying the various components of the work that He has called you to. Once you identify them, then you begin to prayerfully ask the Lord, where do these steps fit in, or where do these pieces fit in terms of priority and in terms of our ease of use and in terms of facilitating the work of the kingdom. So once you've identified it, then you can begin to put it all together so that eventually, just as when you walk out of your garage, you can see everything in its place where it needs to be, or you can look back at your ministry and notice and realize that things are where they're supposed to be. It's because you have been led by the Holy Spirit, you've been obedient to God, and you are operating His ministry in order. So for the sake of this study, we're going to use the word organization to refer to those activities that help us to put things together. On the other hand, we're going to use the word administration to define those activities that help us to keep things together. Now, getting back to the analogy of that garage, we are simply saying that as an administrating person, what you would do is you would label boxes so that you will know what belongs in those boxes, and at a glance you will be able to see what's inside of those boxes. So once you have put your garage together and everything is neat and in order, by labeling those boxes, if anybody or you come in there to use some of those pieces or some of those contents, and you use them perhaps to do a building project or to go to the beach and you pull out your furniture, your beach furniture and your beach accessories, then when you come back, you will know exactly where to store them for the simple reason of knowing where they are the next time that you want to use them. Perhaps you're like me, there's nothing more frustrating than going into your garage knowing that you have already purchased a piece of equipment or a tool and you did not put it in a place where it's easily accessible or that you even remember, and you have to tear the garage apart to find that piece or find that part. Most of us, what we'll do is we'll just go out and perhaps buy another one just like it, and before you know it, you end up with 3 saws and 2 hammers and things that you don't need simply because you're using resources that should be going in another direction because you were not an able organizer and administrator. So administration simply is those components or those activities that help us to keep things together. It's kind of the labels on that box. If you are running a ministry or if you're running a business, it might be something as simple as creating departments with specific responsibilities so that we know that when a task is at hand, we know where to delegate the work for that particular ministry because we've created a department for it. That department serves as a label, just like in a garage, the label of where you have your hammers and your saws, etc., tell you where to put your hammer and your saw. Other activities in administration that you impart or that you put together as you are running your ministry will make it easier for you to identify what the needs are in your ministry and will allow you to identify what resources you have to address that ministry, what kind of personnel and the budget necessary to make sure that it happens. So for the purposes of this study, we're going to use those 2 terms. Organization, those activities that help us to put things together, and administration, those activities that help us to keep things together. As I mentioned, you will find more exhaustive definitions of these 2 concepts in other sources. But these definitions are simple and they are easily remembered and they will serve us well as we continue this study. Now, once you have understood the importance of administration and organization as a spiritual gift, then you will be able to take the next step, which is to identify or to craft a mission statement for the work that you're doing, so that all of your administrating and all of your organization efforts will be channeled into your mission statement. And that's the most important thing about organizing for an organization, is the leader must be clear about the mission and its reason for being of the organization. And that's going to be the subject of our next session. So as you look through this outline that we are working with, you will remember these simple concepts that we started with as an introduction: that prayer is extremely critical as a foundation, that the work of the Holy Spirit is absolutely necessary to guide you and to lead you, and that administration and organization is a spiritual gift. It cannot be overlooked. It cannot be underestimated. It has to be looked at in the same level of importance as any other gifts of the Spirit, so that the work of God can be done effectively and efficiently. In our next session, we're going to do an introduction of the overall schematic, or the overall components of the model that I'm sharing with you on principles of administration and organization. We'll be right back.